So what is the best shutter speed for photographing moving water? It's a question that I've been asked a lot, and many of you have been given answers by other professional photographers, and I think some of these answers may be wrong or incomplete. But the true answer turned out to be much simpler than I thought, and it's an approach that I've never seen before. It's a question that played on my mind heavily during a recent photo shoot. Even more so as it was a topic that had come up during a recent online lecture I provided to a camera club. But the techniques in this video are well known. Everything here you will be able to do. But there was still a missing piece in the jigsaw. And it wasn't until the end of this shoot that I discovered what I had been looking for over the last 3 decades. Until this point, everything I've watched and read has failed to pull everything together to one point when the right shutter speed is used at the right time and in the right place. But you don't need to wait 3 decades. Maybe 10 minutes more and you will know exactly how I got to this point. Now this shoot starts like any other normal landscape photography shoot. Scouting the riverbank and looking for subjects and things that just catch my eye. Here it was the contrast between the copper beech leaves and the flowing water in the background. I opted for a smooth, creamy, soft background for this photograph. Moving water can make a great backdrop for this sort of image. I used the letterbox crop to accentuate the direction and length of the branch. If you're asking if the professionals can get it wrong, and it's taken you decades to have thought of it, how on earth can anyone else get it right? But trust me, this new way of thinking or system, call it what you want, is so simple to use and obvious. Once you know it, you will even question why you didn't think of it yourself. Maybe you have. But photography is a process, so there are a few things we need to know and understand first. I continued a bit further along the riverbank and found this scene. Taking this photograph presented a few technical challenges, and I ended up focus stacking to get the front to back sharpness and texture in the fallen tree. The contrast between the moving water, the mossy banks and fallen branches framing the scene works well. It was a natural candidate for a square crop. Now if you stop and ask a photographer straight out, what's the best shutter speed to shoot water? If they're any good, the answer you'll receive will probably start with "it depends," and it'll go on for several minutes. Come the end, you probably weren't that much wiser, but you'll have a lot more theory and what their preference is. And I'm guessing what you want to know is what shutter speed you should use. And that's where my new thought process comes in. It's so powerful and it works in every situation. And every time we will create a photograph that is unique to you. The fact is, normally we are trying to deal with so many variables all at once. The lighting, the composition, the depth of field, the amount of water flowing through the river or across the beach. Are we talking about an ocean of crashing waves, deep swells and ferocious winds, or a gentle stream just tickling along leisurely, a meandering river flowing into the mist? Asking how would probably be a better starting point for now. But by the end of this video, you won't be asking how anymore. You'll know the whole jigsaw. I assume that you understand exposure, and if you don't, please comment below or contact me and I will point you in the right direction. But briefly, bear with. If you know this, I don't want to leave anybody else behind. First, we can control the light falling on the sensor. It's what we call exposure, and it's controlled by adjusting one or a combination of 3 things: ISO, aperture and shutter speed. Now, hand holding your camera is fine for most of the time, but I prefer to use a tripod. I use it all the time because it's my preference, but if you want to play with slow shutter speeds, a tripod really is essential. Some cameras have lenses which have a sophisticated vibration reduction system which helps reduce camera shake, and under certain conditions you may get away with it. I'm going to stick with the tried and tested method of using the tripod, and anyway, for me it makes composition so much easier. What you need to do is make sure you turn off the vibration reduction first before you put your camera on your tripod, because really it can sort of impact the way that your camera works and you may get blurred images. Now, to get the correct exposure, The ISO, shutter speed and aperture must be balanced. So when moving water, we're normally concerned with the shutter speed. So if you move this and get it how you want, you must adjust the ISO or the aperture in harmony with that to get the correct exposure. But sometimes controlling light on its own isn't enough, and we need to modify that light. Turning the sun up or down isn't possible, but using a filter to reduce the amount of light reaching the lens is. You can use neutral density or ND filters to reduce the light falling on the sensor. And just remember, a fast shutter speed freezes water in time, and a slow shutter speed allows the water to move and drag the light across the exposed sensor, producing motion blur. So now you know how to control and modify the light. You can decide on the best shutter speed, right? Or yes, to a point. You need to experiment and decide what you like. But that's where most explanations stop, because all you need to do now is decide on what you like and you have finished. And if that's all you want to stop, now the rest of the video is going to be worthless to you. But I think you should stick around, because I've come to realise that this is only half of the solution. First, there's one more filter I need to tell you about, the polarizer, as it will improve the way most of your water photographs look. By rotating the filter, you can control the light reflected back to the camera and reaching the sensor. By reducing that reflected light, which will help you control exposure and take the glare off the surface of the water and the leaves, the vegetation. It'll reveal some more of the texture in the water and also, in some cases, what lies beneath it. But remember, you're only trying to control it, not take the sheen away completely. This is the kind of moving water that I like, smooth but textured. 0.5 seconds seems to work well, giving a nice balance between motion blur and texture. And control is the all-important phrase here, because we don't want to kill the nature of the water. Now, the deeper I get into landscape photography, the more I realise that the most important thing is the connection that you and I and everybody else has with the landscape and how it makes us feel. It's not about making Instagram compliant images. Now, pros can be constrained a bit by one simple fact. They must make money from their photographs. They must have strong photographs that jump out in your face and in a fraction of a second get a hit on the like or the follow button. But not for you and me, or at least not in our personal work. Now, I've heard many photographers talk about mood and atmosphere, and I try and capturing both in my landscapes and seascapes, woodlands and rivers along the valleys. I'm often found longing for the mist to descend down into the cool light of dawn, or the last golden rays before the sun hits the cliffsides. But I've never, or so long ago that I've failed to remember, been encouraged to capture energy. Now, water carries energy through the landscape, and the impact of that energy seems to flow through us. You can really feel it and hear it. It's a tangible thing in the landscape. The energy of water transcends the physical world and plays on our own moods. Slow, gentle water traversing along a wooded river valley often leaves me feeling calm and relaxed. And this can be captured in your photographs with a slower shutter speed, creating soft, gentle feel to your work. The use of the polarizing filter has increased the contrast between the darker and lighter areas of water by reducing reflections. But when I leave the coast, I'm often exhilarated, where the waves crash on rocks and torrents of water are propelled high up into the air. It's exhilarating, and I leave with my heart pounding and senses tingling. The photography is exciting, and capturing the moment requires a split-second timing. The photographs demand that the moment of impact is frozen forever in time with a fast shutter speed. The mood of water is carried in its energy, and photographs taken that capture this energy can transcend the printed page, taking you back to the amazing moments out in nature that you experience. Sometimes there is just enough sunlight. Using the ND filters and the polarizer, I was able to control the contrast, shadows and highlights to allow enough texture, sparkle and motion to come through the image. It's always worth staying around for one more. So the next time I get asked what's the best shutter speed to photograph water, I'm going to tell people that it's the one that captures your feelings and your mood in a single moment. It's the one that takes into account the energy transcending and crossing the landscape. So when you look back at it in 10 years' time, you are taken back to that moment when you were stood there. Watch this video next to delve deeper into the world of photography, where you can create photographs that are uniquely yours.